नमस्ते। हमेशा खुश रहो बिटिया। Myself Dr. Gaurav Gupta, Assistant Professor, Department of Forensic Medicine and Toxicology, Faculty of Homeopathic Science, Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University, Jaipur. Today we are going to continue infanticide and child abuse. In the previous session, we studied about what is infanticide, what are the legal aspects of infanticide. Today we are going to study postmortem findings in case of autopsy of infant. So first of all, external examination is done where clothing and wrapping should be examined and retained for identification of the mother. What the child is wearing and or with what cloth the child is wrapped, it should be examined very carefully for any sign, any postmortem staining or any sign of poison, toxic material or any instrumental injury. Any blood sign should be examined on clothes and wrappings, and it should be retained for the identification purpose. Measurement of head, chest and abdominal circumference, length of the infant from crown to heel, and length of foot for fetuses, and weight of the body should be taken as it helps in the gestational age of the baby. General features like the presence of dysmorphic features should be examined and documented, and karyotyping should be considered if significant abnormal features are noted. So if there is any sign or any evidence of any genetic problem, then it should be examined, it should be considered, and documentation of all the dysmorphic features should be done. In the head, the distribution and quality of hair over the head and rest of the body should be noted. Any abnormality in the shape of the head related to molding, any sign of trauma, soft tissue edema, hemorrhage, or autolysis are to be noted. In face, facial features should be examined, and if there is any abnormality, then it should be recorded. Configuration of the ear should be examined, and plasticity, that is indicating amount of cartilage, should be evaluated as an index of developmental stage. As it varies with the developmental stage, they should be examined very carefully. In extremities, the position of the hands and feet as well as the fingers and nails must be noted. Now changes of putrefaction. The changes of putrefaction helps in deciding the time since death, that how much time before the death has happened. Bodies of the newborn infants are normally sterile. When they breathe and swallow, microorganisms enters into the body. Therefore, in the stillborns, putrefaction occurs from outside to inward, and in live-born infant from within to outward. This is a very important difference in the process or changes of putrefaction in case of stillborn and newborn. As in case of stillborn, there is no respiration, there is no breathing, there is no swallowing. So entry of microorganism is not easily possible. So in that case, putrefaction occurs from outside to inward. But in case of live-born infants, along with the respiration, along with the breath, microorganisms enter into the body, and therefore the putrefaction starts from within to outward. Genital area. The perineal area is inspected and checked for the patency of anal opening. Genital organs, meatus, scrotum should be examined in the male child, and genital organs, vagina, should be examined in case of female infant. Presence or absence of vernix caseosa should be examined, as vernix caseosa is present on the body of the child if it has been unwashed, but its absence is also not useful, as it indicates that the child has been washed and the child has survived for some time after birth. Injuries. All the injuries and bruises, particularly around nose, mouth, and frenulum, should be noted and photographed. Inflicted injuries should be carefully distinguished from injuries owing to birth trauma, normal anatomical features, and postmortem damage. So all the injuries, all the bruises, all the abrasions should be noted, and careful examination should be done around nose, mouth, and frenulum for any injury. And if any injury is present, then photograph of that injury should be taken. But these injuries should be differentiated from the injuries which are possible during the process of birth or due to birth trauma or normal anatomical features or due to postmortem damages. Placenta. Placenta should be weighed to evaluate maturity, and if there is any abnormality, then it should be observed and noted down. Umbilical cord. Two knots of umbilical cord are tight with congestion of vessels on one side and pallor on other side. Conversely, blood flows in short cords may also be compromised if there is excessive traction during delivery. Usually, the true knots are very tight and there is congestion of vessels on one side and pallorness on the other side. Now, the internal examination. Brain should be examined, and while reflecting the scalp, note should be made that whether there is any subaponeurotic hemorrhage to exclude asphyxia or deep bruises. Limbs and sternum is examined for the presence of ossification centers to determine the age of the fetus. Neck is examined for internal injuries, and for the trachea is examined for the presence of any foreign body, froth, mucus, or amniotic fluid. Any evidence for malformation or birth injury should be meticulously searched, which may reveal obvious incompatibility with the continuation of the life. The lungs, stomach, heart, genitalia, and other viscera are examined for different parameters. Age of fetus. By weighing the infant and measuring the height, crown to heel length, various other measurements like crown rump length, head circumference, chest circumference, and the foot length gives an approximation of the gestational age. But there is a rule to know the age of infant. The rule is rule of Hess. It is a rough method of calculating the age of fetus. The length of fetus is measured from crown to heel in centimeters. During during first 5 months of pregnancy, the square root of length gives approximate age of fetus. And during the last 5 months, length in the centimeters divided by 5 gives age in months. So suppose the length of fetus is 50 centimeter, then it should be divided by 5 and it will give an approximate age that it is 10 months. Viability of infant, it means physical ability of fetus to lead a separate existence after birth apart from its mother by virtue of a certain degree of development which depends on biological, physiological and extrinsic factor. So viability of an infant is the particular ability or chances of the fetus that he can be alive when he is separated from her mother or from his mother, and it depends on the development of biological, physiological and extrinsic factors. The age of viability varies among countries, with 24 and 28 weeks being cited as the lower limit of potential survival. So in some countries it is 24 weeks and in some countries it is 28 weeks, after which a child or a fetus may live when it is separated from mother womb. Medically, the age of viability in India is taken as 28 weeks of gestation. Till that, there is no legally defined cutoff limit of intrauterine development, age or weight at which body automatically becomes viable. So there is no fixed criteria regarding the age or weight of the baby that after this age or after this weight the child can be become viable. But it is considered that after 28 weeks there are chances that he attains the viability. A premature baby in a rural area in a developing country is unlikely to survive. So due to the medical opportunities, lack of the medical opportunities, if a baby born prematurely in rural area, then he has or then it has very less chances to survive in compared to a premature baby born in well developed city or the city having good medical facilities. Any newborn infant, whatever is the length of gestation, can be a victim of infanticide if born alive. This session is powered by digital version 2.0, Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University. Hope you are satisfied with my digital session. If you have any query, please mention in comment box. I will resolve it. Thank you.